compliments of the season and welcome to Book World, where we sit with writers and explore the stories that stay with us long after the final page. I am your host, Andrea Torhee, and in the spirit of this season of love, today's episode is a tender and emotionally layered conversation around Under the Rain, a romantic suspense novel by Ayo Deforge. Under the Rain is a deeply moving story about first love, impossible choices, and the quiet ache of what might have been. Ayo Deforge is a Nigerian writer based in the south of France. Her work has appeared in Brittle Paper, Literal Magazine, Kalahari Review, and J-Lit, among many others. Her debut novel, Tearless, published in 2023, was shortlisted for both the Association of Nigerian Authors Prize for Fiction and the Chinua Achebe Prize for Fiction. We are honored to have her join us today to talk about love, loss, grief, and the emotional landscapes that shape her work. Welcome to Book World, Ayo.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We're glad to have you. So tell us about the book Under the Rain. What does the title symbolize, or what does it stand for you?
Actually, the title symbolizes seasons. You know, we all go through seasons in our life, and I wanted it to symbolize, different seasons in the life of the protagonist. The season of grief, the season of loss. You know, the season of choices that he had to make, whether he was ready or not.
Okay. So what about in the context of the story in the book? What does the title Under the Rain have to do with the story? What's the connection?
It's in the story, talks that there's a lot of rain in the story, but it's not really the literal rain. It's the seasons, like I explained, the seasons of that he had to go through, and whether he liked it or not, he had to go through different seasons in his life and survive and continue to live, whether the situation pleases him or not, whether he likes it. He has to get up and keep moving, keep moving forward, and whether he has the love of his life or not, he has to get up and take care of his brother Bamidele. He has to go to work. He has to just keep surviving, even if his life is not perfect. It's not what he wants it to be. So Under the Rain is, covering the different seasons he had to go through, because he didn't have an easy life at all, but he had to go through these seasons and come out of it strong.
Okay. You keep referring to he. Is this the character Bolaji in the book? Can you give us a brief synopsis of what the book is about?
Yes, Under the Rain is about Bolaji. It's written from a male's point of view, and it's about his life, growing up with a brother who has sickle cell, and being in love with the girl next door, his childhood friend Shola. He was in love with her, and he just couldn't, tell her that he loved her. And he decided, okay, I'd rather be a friend than not be in her life at all. And then we see them grow together. We see them, become friends and best friends. And then they went to university together. And then from there, she had to, having overprotective parents, there were things she couldn't share with her own parents. So Bolaji was there for her. And then they started dating, but the relationship didn't last long. They separated, and they didn't see each other for over a decade. And then they finally met again as adults and began, dating. Even though they were married, they had to make the decision whether to, stop hurting themselves to be together or hurt other people, and just so that they can be happy, or maybe decide to continue their life the way it is, even if they're not happy with what they have, what they call life.
So what exactly sparked this type of story of Bolaji and Shola? Was it a personal experience? Was it an experience of some of your friends or someone you know?
No, it's as a writer, some stories just come to us and then we try to, pour it into words, put it down on paper. So I've always wanted to write a love story, a very powerful love story, not just, any romance story. And I wanted it to be able to, talk about, adults having to make difficult choices. I want to talk about people who are in love but have to, negotiate medically with regards to um, their blood group. And also, I wanted to talk about when we cannot force love. When one person says stop and the other person is saying, "But you are the love of my life." What will happen when we find ourselves in this situation? You know, in trying to put all that into words, Under the Rain was Beth.
Now, how are you able to, this book is a romantic suspense. How are you able to balance these thematic expressions of romance and also putting the elements of suspense? Because romantic stories, sometimes you always know, oh, the boy meets the girl, they fall in love, they get married, they get together. At the end of the day, they fight all odds, and then they end up together. How are you able to put in suspense and still balance it in a romantic novel such as this?
Um, there was no way I could write this romantic story without actually talking about the moral tension of it. So automatically, the very moment you start talking about this emotional tension that is in the story, then it automatically becomes a suspense, because it's not just will they end up together, it's the choices that they have to make, deciding that, okay, they're married, are they going to leave their spouses and hurt them, hurt like Bolaji, who also has two children, and is he going to give up all that for love? It was a decision for him about desire and duty. Duty as a father, as a husband, should he put that first, or should he put himself first, love first? So in trying to explore this, I had to explore regrets. I had to explore second chances, and I had to explore, how the past can reshape things, and how the past will leave fingerprints, nostalgia, and forbidden love, and there you are, and I ended up with a romantic suspense novel.
Great. You had to involve a lot of elements in there to make it more spicy, I would say. So let's talk about the sickle cell reality. The sickle cell trait discovery becomes a turning point in this novel. Why do you think it was important for you to include these reality?
Sickle cell is, unlike in Europe, it's not that common, but it's common in Africa. It's a lived reality for many Africans, and I wanted to be able to explore it emotionally. Other writers have done that, but I also wanted to do it, and also show how the weight of this on a family, on the carriers themselves, on a romantic relationship also. I was interested in not only showing, how it's lived through, but also grief. I wanted to touch survivors' guilt, and also how this sort of situation, how genetics can really, affect a family life, a romantic relationship in human ways, and I hope that I've been able to do that successfully.
I believe that you have. Now let's talk about Bolaji and Shola. As a writer, you might want to sympathize or lean towards one character or the other in your book. So did you tend to sympathize with Bolaji more than Shola, or the other way around?
I actually sympathize with the two of them, differently. For Bolaji, because of course he has always been in love with Shola, and he at a there was a point he said that he had lost the two greatest love of his life, which is his brother and Shola, and but this I believe this is life. We don't always get what we want. We just have to learn to accept it, and sometimes we may not be able to move on from some things, but we just have to continue, keep moving forward. And I sympathize with him because things are not the way he would want them to be, and he's a deeply selfless person, and I wanted everything good for him. For Shola, she's a very bold, woman, and she's always been a bold girl. But unfortunately, she was overprotected by her parents. And the problem is when we overprotect children, and they don't go under our wings. They don't know how to come to us when they have problems because they are scared. And I sympathize with her that she doesn't have parents she can count on. She can be truthful too. She can open up her mind too.
Okay. Now let's talk about the genotype situation, AS and AS coming together and the whole sickle cell reality at the end of the day. Do you think, what is your thoughts exactly on parents who decide, after knowing their genotype, and they still decide to come together and bear children?
In my research, I realized that many times the love that brings them together would end up um, being fragilized by the situation they have to go through when they have children that are dealing with this genetic health issue. And sometimes I understand that it can be painful to let go of someone we love, but sometimes maybe it's better really, because what's the point if the stress, the weight of it all will eventually, crack open the love that they have in the beginning. But the good thing is that today, as we speak, there's cure for it. There's cure for it, even in Nigeria. And recently, they talked about how in New York they did the first successful, I think it was a bone marrow transplant, and the first cure. So I'm happy that this will no longer be the stories of people who have had to leave people that they love because of this problem, and find themselves in marriages where they're not happy because they're not with the love of their lives. So that's the good thing, the advancement in the medical world with regards to sickle cell. As this is good news, but sometimes I feel very sad knowing that so many people, so many parents, even people who have the money, who can afford the transplant now, have already lost their children, and they're here, and they'll be happy with this new development, but still feel sad that it didn't happen before they lost their own, child or children.
All right. We'll come back to love and genetics. I'm glad that now, there are solutions and ways that people who are in love can actually end up together, regardless of their genotype. Now let's talk about time in the book. It plays a very vital role. What fascinates you about love that has been revisited after so many years, just like Bolaji and Shola?
I think and revisit love is everlasting, and the beautiful thing about love is that it's just having somebody love you for who you are, you know, and you being able to love someone is something, that is human, that we will not stop doing, and I believe that 10 writers can sit down together and decide to write a love story, and we'll still all write different things. And I I like a very good romance love story, not just even romance, but a deeply, love story that when you finish, whether you cry or you jump for joy or you think about it over again, months, even years after you've read it, and I wanted to do the same thing. I always said I would love to write a powerful love story. And I just hope and hope and hope that people would, consider it that.
All right. That's great to hear. So for now, we'll hold on there and go for a very short break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Book World. We're still here, seated and discussing Under the Rain, a romantic novel written by Ayo Deforge. Now, Ayo, we're going to talk about your writing journey. Can you tell us, you began writing poetry since you were 13?
Yes.
What inspired you to
I
begin?
I was always content, being a reader. I always say this, and but after I lost my mom, I had so many questions. I was dealing with grief that I needed to express, how I was feeling, and I turned to poetry. It seemed like, it seemed like it helped me really. It saved me. I would say I was also listening to love songs then, and I was able to feel that okay, the way I miss my mom is the way these people, these singers are actually missing their lovers, and I couldn't sing. So I decided, let me write poetry, and try and express, this feeling that I was having that I couldn't name then. I couldn't, I didn't identify it as grief. And poetry sort of came through for me and helped me survive this period when I didn't have any help from any therapist, to deal with it.
Art is such a great way of, expressing yourself, and I completely understand how you managed to, fall into poetry, fall in love with it, and how did that, help you shape your writing skills for
Actually,
prose novels, of course.
with I'm a very descriptive writer, and I practiced that, when I was writing poetry, with the fact that I wanted to be able to express the emotions I couldn't name, and I wanted to give language. I wanted to give words to these, different feelings of loss and grief and the injustice I felt, that my mother had to leave so early. And, today, I can say that poetry taught me rhythms, and also emotional precision to be able to describe perfectly what emotions that I would like to, give turn to words, give a language to. And I even as of today, I still write poems, and I as a writer, doing fiction and non-fiction, there's I write my prose with a poet's pen.
Okay, that's great. Now, you live in France and you've studied French. Can you say the French environment, you know, influenced your storytelling skills, especially when it comes to love stories, such as Under the Rain?
Mhm. Um, I would say yes, but more, I would say it has actually sort of influenced my writing, really, my writing more than my storytelling skills, because moving here, I would say that so many things sort of slowed me down, like my French. Over the years, my French has improved, but my English seems to have been simplified, because I'm not using it consistently. I sometimes think in English, I chat with people in English, but I'm not speaking English every day, and I feel that this has affected, or this has influenced, let me not use the word affect, my writing, which is now, I would say, is clear and very accessible language. I sort of write like I'm writing for non fluent English speakers, you understand, so that they can understand me. I tell myself the most important thing is to communicate, and that anyone would understand you, whether they are English speakers, or non-native speakers. So I I also sort of, when I write about Nigeria, I sort of feel that because I've not been to Nigeria since 2012, I sort of write for my memory, and I'm sort of stuck in that period before everything that happened, everything I lived through, my experience, before 2012. So in every story I write, I sort of set it during the years I was living in Nigeria. So in my works, you will not maybe find something like TikTok, or let's say Uber, Uber. I don't know how to say it in English. In French, we say Uber. So I'm sort of not sure what's the pronunciation, because the words I learned here in French. So when I say Uber, I'm saying the French one. I have to know which one is the English one. Is Uber, Uber. You
Uber?
know. Yes, yes, that's what you say in English, Uber. I
Yes,
mean,
Uber.
here we say Uber,
Okay.
so I'm stuck with things like that, that I'm still stuck back in Nigeria. So if I set a story in Nigeria, I'm not writing about ChatGTP or TikTok or, things that were not common when I was there. So most of my stories, you get the impression that they're stuck in the past, or, set in the past. But I'm reading more and more, Nigerian writers down, and so I think I should be able to set a story in 2020. But I would find it difficult to set a story during the lockdown in Nigeria. You know, as a writer, I should be able to do it, but I'd feel sort of like I wasn't there. I don't know exactly how it felt. Am I able to capture it? Would it feel authentic to Nigerians living there? But yes, moving here has influenced my writing, myself as a writer, my skills, my everything.
Okay. But you still have friends and family here. Maybe when you hear stories from them, it can improve some of your memories from the Nigerian society. Some things that you have forgotten about, or even update you
Mm.
on some of the things that you have missed.
Yes, but because I'm the kind of writer that I like to, have lived, I feel authentic like that when I am writing about something I really. But for sickle cell, for example, it's not a lived experience, but I did a lot of research, extensive, research, and my editor also, as it's the lived experience for her in in the regards that she had a sister who had to deal with it, and she, having an insight really helped me in shaping the story. But there's always something behind that makes you feel, okay, have you done justice to this? Because you don't really know,
Mm,
what it's like, how it feels, you've not lived it. You're just trying your best as a writer. And I hope that, that I've done that. I've done justice to it. I hope so.
I understand. I'm pretty sure that you have, with all that you have told us about this wonderful book, I'm sure you have done justice to it. You've shared the story of Bolaji and Shola as much as you can. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Ayo has shared with us the heartfelt and emotional truths behind Under the Rain. Her writing reminds us that love is not just about timing, but about courage, sacrifice, and the weight of the choices we carry. To our viewers, Under the Rain is a novel to look forward to, one that promises tenderness, depth, and conversations that linger long after the rain has passed. This is Book World. I am Andrea Torhee. Until next time, keep reading, keep feeling, and keep asking the difficult questions. compliments of the season.